this is a board-sponsored member meeting as called for under the various rules and set of procedures that govern how recall effort is to be conducted. I have been asked why this meeting is not a member meeting run by the members. This is the case because we do not have a 40% quorum, which would be 800 members represented in this building. There's a lot of you here, but there's not 800, therefore no action can be taken. Joan Ziegler, the only unaffected board director in this particular effort, is going to act as moderator tonight. Joan, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chuck, and welcome everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. At this point, I would like to introduce the board of directors, the petition sponsors, and Messrs. Epstein and Levy. So can we start with the board, and I would like each of you to stand up and just introduce yourself.
Hi, let out.
My name is George Thorson.
Richard Nolan. Jim Getch.
All right, gentlemen, the petition recall sponsors, would you please introduce yourselves?
My name is Tom Edwards. Ross Topakian.
Tim McShane.
Bill Hagan.
And Ralph Kendrick.
Last but not least, I would like to introduce Brad Epstein, a partner with Angus and Terry, who provide legal counsel to Legal Compliance Association. And David Levy is founder and managing partner of Levy, Erlanger & Company CPAs and is retained by the association to provide professional accounting and audit services. The order of presentations and rebuttals in tonight's meeting has been stated on the agenda. If you've not picked up an agenda, please do so now. Copies are located on the table in the atrium. I will read the language of the petition so that we're all clear about what it is we're talking about tonight. The petition was presented to the board, and this is a quote. The undersigned members representing 5% or more of the Legal Compliance Association hereby petition the board of directors set the earliest reasonable date for a special membership meeting to remove the following directors as described below and to elect replacement directors in the event the recall is successful. Chuck Lothrop, Richard Nolan, Jim Getch, Bud Abbott, Don Carey, George Thorson. The basis for this recall of the above board members are: 1. Not allowing the membership to vote on a $3.1 million clubhouse remodel proposal. 2. Not taking into consideration the recommendations of the Finance Committee, the results of the ballot issued in June 2010, in which members indicated they wanted to, quote, move forward with renovation of existing clubhouse without raising dues, end quote, and the impact the economic recession has had on our community. This is the way the process will work tonight. 20 minutes each have been allotted to the directors and to the petition sponsors for their presentations, their initial presentations, with 5 minutes each for rebuttals and 4 minutes each for closing statements. After Messrs. Levy and Epstein have spoken to the community, statements from homeowners in the audience will be taken. Here are the ground rules for those statements. Number 1, any homeowner may make statements that are reasonably related to the recall election. Please refer to the petition language on the back of your agenda handout. Number 2, no questions will be addressed. Number 3, homeowner statements must be presented in person. And number 4, each homeowner will be allotted 1 minute, non-transferable. There's a microphone located next to the kitchen for the members to use, and a roped-off area in which you can queue up. I will also be the timekeeper for the evening. I ask that all speakers be respectful, stay focused, and keep to the time allotted for comments. Disruptive behavior of any type will not be tolerated. I also ask that members refrain from making comments that will have been previously stated by other members. It will help to keep the meeting focused if we keep similar opinions to a minimum. I thank you in advance for your cooperation. One last point. Volunteers from Channel 7 will be videotaping the meeting tonight, but not in its entirety. Homeowner comments will not be taped. Members will be notified as to the dates and times that the videotape of the meeting will be aired on Channel 7. Now, let's hear from the petition sponsors. Gentlemen, you have 20 minutes to make your initial presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Good evening. First, I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. Your numbers are very encouraging because what we are talking about tonight is a board governance issue that is very important to the future of our community. Tonight's recall could be a tipping point. What message will we be giving this and future boards as to how we want the association's business to be handled? We believe we need a board that will not only adhere to the letter of the governing documents, but also to the spirit of what these bylaws are there to protect. Our individual and collective rights as homeowners. This past weekend, I took the time to view the 2005 board recall meetings. Over the past few weeks, I've almost had some daily thoughts or did something, some actual planning for tonight's meeting. At times I've had this sick feeling in my stomach thinking about this recall. The review of this 2005 video made me recognize at least part of the reason for this visceral reaction. As then board members, Bill Hagan, myself, and Chuck Lautra were a part of the 7 board member recall effort. We want to make it very clear that we draw no pleasure in bringing forward this board recall to the LOP community. Many of these board members are our personal friends. We just have a real difference of opinion on the subject matter of this recall, a community vote on the clubhouse project. Joan Ziegler, our moderator for tonight's meeting, is not a party to this recall because of her support for the larger community she represents and her demonstrated intent to listen to and support the wishes of those who believe, due to the current economic conditions, that we should not be going forward at this time with a major reconstruction of the clubhouse. What would really be more appropriate than a recall process is if our bylaws allowed for a 5% signature petition to force a community-wide vote on a significant board action where the community disagreed with the board's direction. But at this point, what options do any of us have to stop a board action that we believe goes beyond their authority? A lawsuit? Potentially very expensive and long delays. And we have no desire to sue anyone. Therefore, our use of a recall. It's just a shame that that's our only recourse. It is important to understand that we believe proper process and adherence to the requirements and constraints of our governing documents is most important and must come first. The community of Lake of the Pines means a great deal to all of us, and you, the audience, as well, I'm sure. That's why you are here to listen to these proceedings. Tom Edwards' family and mine have a very long history with LOP dating back to the very beginning of this association. We practically raised our kids on weekends here in Lake of the Pines while we were working in the Bay Area so that someday we could retire to what truly has felt like our real home for all of these years. Many memories, many friends, a lot dating back from all those early years. I thought I'd like to add these personal comments here so that you can appreciate how deeply we feel about this place. Tonight's meeting is considered by the board to be a board-called member meeting. President Chuck Lautrip has dictated to us the format of this meeting and the order of the discussions we will be having this evening. We are prevented the use of an overhead projector. The membership is only going to be able to make a 1-minute comment with no questions allowed. We are restricted to a total of 20 minutes, and none of your comments will be videotaped for the broader community to witness. We've just had the moderator read to us the petition to recall 6 of our current board members. This petition was originated by a resident who was hesitant to turn it in and came to me to see if I would move her petitions forward. Our group before you then coalesced around this effort. This is how all of this came together and why our group of 5 residents are now sponsoring this petition for the 160-plus signees and our community at large. Our group of 5 consists of residents who are dedicated to supporting the majority concerns of our community. I'm going to give you some biographical background here on our group so that you can appreciate further our experience, our dedication to LOP, and our past and current community involvement. We have 2 who have served as past LOP board members, one a past board president, one who was a board president in the late 80s of another HOA. A total of 30-plus years of LOP committee work, an Air Force colonel, a Navy captain, and a Marine Corps sergeant. A PhD, a JD, and an MBA. An owner-entrepreneur of his own company. An executive responsible for the financial management of projects ranging from $2 million to $50 million. Another with projects ranging to $200 million. 2 whose professional responsibilities involve the analysis of corporate financials, and a former Fortune 500 Vice President, General Manager, who has conducted operational reviews and due diligence on many organizations. Essentially, we want the LOP community to view this recall petition as their opportunity to vote on the expanded clubhouse project. Simply put, the recall vote is a proxy vote on the clubhouse project. It all boils down to a very simple fact. This ballot gives you a vote on the new and greatly expanded and more costly clubhouse project. These 6 board members voted to approve this expanded plan, which goes far beyond what the members approved in June of 2010. They need to be removed so that we can replace them with residents who will abide by our bylaws and always allow us to vote on any large expenditures of funds. In June of 2010, an advisory vote was taken of our community to essentially do something to the clubhouse or nothing at all. Prior to this vote, in the March and April LOP news, this is back in 2010, the board reported that in a unanimous vote of the board, admin would not be included in the clubhouse project. So this became part of the context in which our advisory vote in June was taken. In a vote of more than 3-to-1, 745 to 220. Over 900 people voted. We, the members, approved a renovation of the clubhouse that would not increase our association dues. Not a remodel, not an expansion. As late as the 2011 May issue of the LOP News, the planned total cost of the renovation was going to be $2 million. And during this same time frame, for most of 2011, our finance committee was advising the board to pay off the sports lounge loan first before proceeding with the clubhouse project. In late summer and fall of 2011, At board and town hall meetings, the community was asking the board to slow down, pay off the sports lounge loan, and give us a vote on the loan, and now major change to this original clubhouse plan that we will call Plan A. This new Plan B clubhouse project is going to cost close to $4 million when you include loan interest, cost of temporarily housing admin and accounting elsewhere, the tear down and removal of the current clubhouse, and then the cost of refurnishing the new clubhouse. To simplify, what we had approved and was our understanding for the clubhouse project, again as late as May of 2011. May of 2011 was the following. Our association dues would not increase, and understanding that the clubhouse Plan A would exclude admin and would provide additional and new functional areas for residents, like a fitness center, have a construction cost of $2 million and would pay off the sports lounge loan first. As you may know, we have a 5% limit on what can be specially assessed to the membership without a vote. Based upon a $6 million annual budget, that amounts to approximately $150 per lot per annum. Back around 2003, our community voted and approved a special assessment of $175 per lot to support the construction of a new public works building and the reconstruction of the swimming pool. As of October 18, 2007, a new special assessment of $174 was created by the Crawford Board, Bridget Crawford. This new and materially different special assessment began in January of 2008. At the same time, the previous loan was paid in full. Back then, it was acknowledged in the LOP news by the Crawford Board that the expenditure of this amount of money would have to come before the membership for a vote before it could be spent. Let us say at this point that we do not care if it is legal to proceed without a member vote. Repeat that. We do not care if it is legal to proceed without a member vote. This is just too important of a project to do without one. Our LOP community, as do we, the signees and our 5 sponsors here, recognize that something needs to be done with the clubhouse, our one primary piece of real estate. Our community has shown in the past its willingness to open its purse strings. Reference the public works building and the new swimming pool. In anyone's mind, how were we able to exercise our right to vote on these 2 earlier, less costly projects and now not be allowed to vote on this more costly and greatly expanded project? The LOP community needs to use this recall ballot as a proxy vote on the expanded and more costly Plan B clubhouse project. Because of the constraints forced upon us by the board president, Mr. Lautrip, we have not been allowed the use of a projector for a planned PowerPoint presentation, as the meeting rules defined by the board for this recall meeting gave us inadequate time and structure to present all of the issues to you, the members, and did not allow for questions from you and answers to your questions. We have reserved this room immediately following this meeting for that purpose. We invite and encourage all of you to attend and participate. We believe that the issue of a board recall and the choice of a plan for the refurbishing or reconstruction of the clubhouse are serious enough that you should be allowed ample opportunity to understand the issues and to enable you to make an informed decision. Furthermore, we believe that you should have another chance now that the clubhouse project has moved significantly from where it was, to be able to fully express your views to the members present here tonight. And let me repeat one last time. A vote yes to recall the board is a red light to stop the current Plan B clubhouse project. A vote no on the recall is a green light for the board to go full steam ahead with the current plan. I want to thank you from our group of 5 and for the greater LOP community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ralph. In the spirit of trying to be an accurate timekeeper, you have 5 more minutes if you'd like to use it of the 20 minutes allotted. Are there any additional comments from anyone? No? Okay, thank you. And now we'll have the presentation by the Board of Directors named in the recall petition. 20 minutes starts now. Gentlemen.
Our economy, one of the elements of the petition, is struggling. Everybody in this room knows that. Most everybody in this room is probably affected by that. But rather than crawl in a hole, throw precious good money after bad, or just stand on the sidelines and wring our hands, we should ask, how can we take advantage of that situation? That's what the smart money people do. This is exactly what the board has done. You can argue the numbers, but everywhere we turn and everything we read and hear supports the fact that construction costs are down between 20 and 30% from just 3 years ago. There is consensus among the experts. Once the economy stabilizes, these pre-recession costs will return. You can also be certain that inflation will return. What we have done is to buy at the bottom of the market and also beat inflation to the punch. I ask you, what in the heck is wrong with that? Without raising the assessment one dime, despite what you've heard, the project will be taking advantage of the slow economy and proceeding at a measured pace. We've been at it for 15 or 16 months. By acting now, we are getting more value for each member's dollar, and these people want to recall us for that course of action. We think this is short-sighted and foolish. When we started down this path 15 months ago, we did not know about the $500,000 worth of structural and engineering and seismic issues associated with this building. It's an old, outdated building. No one can deny that. That fact removed any doubt that the time to renovate was now. The board decided that we should not waste any more money on this already patched up clubhouse. In life, there are those who act swiftly and prudently, and those who moan and groan about their circumstances, of what they like and what they don't like. This board acted wisely. In the end, every member will benefit as measured by the pride in LOP, and by the way, maybe a little increase in our property values. When you add our assessments up, and you add $185 for the sewer, you add the cost of propane over natural gas that the people in Auburn pay, and you maybe throw in a little money for commuting back and forth to Raley's, it costs probably $5,000 after taxes to live at LOP versus one of those homes around Dry Creek. We need to offer value for that money, such as quality facilities and hopefully a less politically turmoil atmosphere. Now on to one of the other 4 charges. There's been much talking about Article 8, Section 2 of our bylaws. So let me try and help you in a simple way understand how that fits into our decision. This is a limiting article, which says that the board can only spend in any given year, without member approval, an amount not to exceed 5% of the total budget. That money being spent on new assets, which are called capital additions. In our case, that would be about $250,000 a year. That would be the limitation on the 5%. This article makes perfect sense, and the board and I totally support it. However, There is an additional provision in that article of the bylaw that says in very, very clear and distinct language that if funds have been identified, collected, segregated, that are clearly marked as capital improvement funds, then these monies can be used in addition to the 5% money mentioned earlier. This provision allows associations to collect and hold monies for future capital improvements. A fiscally sound and reasonable practice, much like you do in your church or wherever else you have been involved in building funds. What does this mean? It means that all the monies needed for capital improvements in the clubhouse renovation project will be available without violating the provisions of Article 8, Section 2. We will not violate Article 8, Section 2. Another example, I think, of good, sound planning by this board. How much capital improvement money is planned for the project? Currently, we estimate an amount to about $675,000. Given the provisions of Article 8, we estimate that the total funds available, using the formula as dictated in our bylaws, is in excess of $1 million. So we're not exceeding anything. The money is there, so a member vote is not required. That's how the rules read. That's the rule. And if you want to bend the rules every time you don't like something, that's a different story. There is no issue. This small group is saying we don't care about the rule, we want to vote anyway. And by the way, they'd like to run the place. The provisions of Article 8, Section 2 will not be violated. Why then all the fuss? Don't ask me. The answer is clear. And yes, we have presented this information time and time and time again. Newspaper, Channel 7, town hall meetings. This is not new stuff. Plus, we have provided this group with our attorney-backed information. Jim, all yours.
Good evening. I'd like to address the part about us not taking into consideration the recommendations of the Finance Committee and the results of the ballot of June 2010. First of all, how can this minority claim that the current board has not taken the three stated items under consideration? Have they attended all of the board meetings? Maybe one or two of them. Are they serving on any of the current committees, working with the board on any issue? One of these guys is on a committee. Did they participate in the clubhouse planning meetings that were held every 2 weeks last year? Not that I'm aware of. Only a very small minority have participated to the extent that the board members have, and we assure you, we take all input into consideration. Did the board take into consideration the recommendations of the Finance Committee? The current Finance Committee has made some recommendations that we have adopted and others that we have not. That committee has not recommended a member vote on the clubhouse and is not against the renovation of the clubhouse. The Finance Committee that I work with as treasurer has allowed me to read what they stand for. They said they support the June 2010 construction if it does not raise the assessments. They think it was preferable to pay off the sports lounge as soon as possible. They think safety repairs and code upgrades should be done as soon as possible. Space utilized by staff could be made more efficient when funds are available. And the Finance Committee agrees with the board's goal to increase the capital reserve. We decided not to accept their recommendation regarding the paying off the sports lounge right away. Part of the reason was we didn't want to lose the $400,000 it would take to have that. We needed the flexibility to move forward with other things. Had we not kept that money, we would not be in a position to attack the seismic renovations that the insurance company strongly suggested we start this spring. It would have left us short of cash for about 2 years. The committee was very involved with helping management and the board with the 2012 budget. We relied on their expertise in a number of areas and continue to value their input to the board. We will continue to receive their input and definitely take their recommendations into consideration. As an added thought, the committees at LOP serve at the request of the board. There is no rule that the board has to follow a committee's recommendation. And it is impossible to say that the board has not taken a committee's input into consideration. If it is necessary to adopt every committee's recommendation to prove that it was taken into consideration, then the committee would be driving the board, not the other way around. So this accusation is entirely false. I worked with the Finance Committee. We considered what the Finance Committee had to say. We did not necessarily agree with everything. Now we're told that we're not taking into consideration the results of the ballot issued in June 2010, in which members indicated they wanted to move forward with the renovation of the clubhouse as long as that project does not cause an increase in my assessment. To address this charge, let's take a look at the history of the clubhouse. It was built in 1965 to 1967. In 1982, the clubhouse should have been placed in the Capital Reserve to be replaced within 30 years. We didn't do that. At the time, the Capital Reserve portion of the assessment should have been increased significantly to prepare for this multi-million-dollar replacement. That means that back in 1982, we should have charged everyone here another $70 a year for the past 30 years to get to this point. In 1995, the clubhouse was 30 years old, and there were early plans for renovating it. Some patchwork was done. In 1999 to 2000, the clubhouse was 35 years old, and there was a fairly grandiose plan for replacing all of our structures at once. The plan was not supported by the members. More patchwork was done. In 2003, the clubhouse was 38 years old when the board adopted a new strategy for replacing our buildings and structures one by one. Here's a quote from the LOP News in August of 2002. At the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee and with unanimous support from the board, the many times discussed maintenance yard and pool renovations were addressed. An additional $175 was added to the assessment as a contribution to reserves, specifically to deal with projects. This project renovation fund was approved by 5 board members, including Ralph Kendrick, with no one voting against it. It was stated in the minutes that the $175 was being put aside for projects, not any one particular project. The first structure was the maintenance area. It was formerly some sheds and a plot of ground. It was replaced with new buildings, garages, and offices. No HOA fees were increased to pay this off. It was all done with the $175 a year. You did not notice an increase in your fees during that time frame. The second structure was the swimming pool. That's a state-of-the-art structure. No HOA fees were increased to pay that off. In 2006, the clubhouse was 40 years old when Omni Home Inspections took a look at it. Much of the building was shown to be in disrepair with special recommendations that the electrical system be upgraded. In 2007, David Wright and Associates reviewed the clubhouse and stated that it lacked proper lateral force resistance and did not meet the current code. Conclusion, a retrofit would be more costly than a replacement. They suggested tearing it down and building another one. In 2008, there was a change to the project renovation fund. The original project renovation fund that was used to finance the maintenance shop and the swimming pool was able to pay off the loan in January of 2008. The board recognized the need for this fund to continue. Here's the board resolution. The board has established a new line item, Facilities Renovation Fund, in the budget, and $174 of your 2008 assessment will be deposited into this fund. These funds cannot be used for any other purpose than the renovation of our facilities. So it was taking into account the fact that we needed to keep doing these building replacements. Our capital reserve does not cover the physical structures of the building. It covers the components and the roads, so we needed a fund to handle that. Going on with the third structure we built with this 175 was the sports lounge. No HOA fees were increased to pay that off. It was the $175 that you've been paying since 2003 that carried the loan on that. Now it is the clubhouse that needs to be renovated. It is now 45 years old. Most homeowners associations in California would apply a special assessment to replace a structure like this. Because of the wisdom of the board in 2003 that set aside this renovation fund for purposes of renovating the clubhouse and others, and the equal foresight of the board in 2008, we don't have to have a special assessment. This ballot here, which states that people want to move forward with the renovation of the clubhouse, doesn't say anything about how much it was supposed to be. It doesn't say that it had to have no admin spaces in it. It only said, should we proceed with a renovation? What is a renovation? Some people might call it a replacement. Some people might call it a heavy decoration. Renovation is making this building something that it's not right now. It is not economically feasible to run the building in terms of energy use. We heat the whole thing or we cool the whole thing. We don't have the space and the setup of the rooms to make this thing effective for a lot of different groups. We sometimes have a card party over here and something over there. There's no privacy here. Anyway, what I wanted to say is this vote, as was pointed out, was passed by 77% of the voters. Using that advisory vote as a guideline, the board authorized an exploratory clubhouse committee to look at possible clubhouse renovation solutions in the fall of 2010. Remember, we're not going to raise your HOA fees. That is not an issue here. If our fees have gone up, it is because of other elements. But this has stayed steady and paid for all the reconstruction to date. A series of planning meetings were held throughout 2011 on nearly every other Tuesday evening to allow members to participate in the planning of what the clubhouse should look like. We conducted our overview of the project process, as would any of you on a personal project. We started out, and the clubhouse committee and the board looked at various plans. Naturally, we wanted all we could get. Well, suddenly the price of it loomed out of sight. We took stock of that. We said, wait a minute, we can't afford that. Let's see something less. We settled on something that will cost us $2.4 million. We added a padded amount in there to call it a 3.1 if you like. The ridiculousness of counting in the interest on that. Do you realize that if you take out a $350,000 loan at our interest rate that we're going to be using for 30 years, you'll end up paying $750,000. Does that mean you took out a loan for $750,000? No. We're going to be taking out a loan up to $2.2 million maximum. And it will be paid off within 8 years. We had to consider whether we wanted to patch up this thing for a $1 million price tag or do something that would really make it a gem in the tiara of our existence here. We elected that the $1 million solution would not make it any more useful to us, wouldn't give us the energy efficiency. The committee and the board involved the membership every step of the way. Those meetings were open to everyone. We had several meetings down here where people looked around and decided what kind of architecture they wanted. Both the clubhouse committee and the board decided it would be in the best interest of the association to do a more thorough renovation of the clubhouse. Did we hold a member vote each step of that process? No, that's not what we're elected to do. We're elected to make the difficult decisions. If we had to make a vote every time we wanted to change something around here, I admit 3.1 is higher than 2. But if we want a quality building, you've elected this board, the majority of you elected this board to have us do it. So the board is complying with the express wishes of the majority of the membership based on the June 2010 advisory vote. In a year and a half, we should have a clubhouse that we can all be proud of, and this renovation will not raise the assessment of any member of this association. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim and Chuck. We're now at agenda item point number 4, the rebuttal by the recall petition sponsors. You have 5 minutes, gentlemen.
This is the biggest group I've ever seen in here. So I want to compliment the board on doing exactly what the sponsors and signatories of this petition wanted.
Could you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Tim McShane. So what we were hoping, and it has happened, is this board is now selling to you why their project is a good thing. And you as a group are going to decide because you now have a vote. This recall isn't necessarily about don't do it or do it. It's about getting the buy-in of all of you because it's your money. That's what this vote has always been about. Listen to what they're saying, assess it. If you like it, vote to keep them. If you look at it and say, no, I may like the plan, but not now, that's just too much money, then vote to remove them. What Ralph said was very true. None of us wanted to do a recall. We simply wanted to vote on this project because it's just too much money. This is our crown jewel. You should have a say, and we should all be able to look each other in the eye and say the members at least got to express an opinion of whether or not we should spend millions of dollars on this building. It's the center of our community. We have to have buy-in. So again, I compliment the board. I'm going to a large degree into selling why their project is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. All right, we're now at number 5, rebuttal by the Board of Directors. 5 minutes.
I have the least amount to do on the board, so they elected me to do this. I'm Jim Getz, the treasurer. I'd like to call your attention to a few facts. No one on the board is accused of violating the director's code of conduct. No one on the board is accused of failing to abide by the wide array of governing documents. No one on the board is accused of abusing members or employees. No one on the board is accused of dereliction of duty. We've just been complimented on the fact that we suddenly are now communicating with all of you, when that's what we've been doing for 15 months. I've been numerous times in front of you talking about these. I'm going to skip some of this stuff. We've already talked about the fact that it's not going to cost you any money. Please, I don't want to hear that again. I've written columns about it. I've been on TV about it. This is not costing you any extra money to have the clubhouse. It's going to take 8 years to pay it off, but that'll all be taken care of with that fund. So what happens, the reason we're being recalled is that we voted for something that the minority does not want us to do. With the information we studied, and we spent a lot of time on this, we reviewed committee work, we worked with a lot of people, we were left with 4 choices. 4 choices. First, we had a choice to do nothing and let the next board take care of it. It's kind of popular now to kick the can down the road. That's not what we were here for. This was not really a choice because the seismic study required that we do something within the year or shut down the clubhouse. We didn't have a lot of choice. Second, we could spend $500,000 on a seismic refit and then spend the $400,000 from the capital reserve to take care of some of the other items relating to the structure here that had to be fixed over the next 5 years. This would leave the clubhouse, much as it is now, with another set of patches. This option was equivalent to putting lipstick on a pig, from our point of view, because it failed to take into account a more useful clubhouse layout and a more efficient energy system. Our third choice was to move the clubhouse renovation into the capital reserve, as we should have done 30 years ago, and increase the member assessment to cover the higher capital reserve level. This was not an option because it would mean an increase in the assessments that we committed not to do. Fourth, we could go forward with the renovation of the clubhouse to include a more useful layout so it could be used more effectively for the meetings, weddings, and events that the current design limits. We don't think it necessary to have a member vote on every aspect of the project, but we acted in accordance with the advisory vote in 2010 and the wishes of the members who participated in the clubhouse design. I reviewed the video of the attempted recall of the board in 2005, and I was surprised to see that Bill Hagan and Ralph Kendrick were on the board at that time. They were being recalled then as we are being recalled now. At that time, they both deplored the entire recall process. Ralph called that recall unprecedented and absolutely unwarranted. Bill called the reasons for that recall as just plain bogus. It certainly seems as if their words then could apply now. Why have they flip-flopped? At one time, they accused the recall minority of opposing the will of the majority who had elected the board. Don't they have any misgivings about doing the very same thing now? Why do they think they are justified in doing something now that they objected to 7 years ago? For that matter, where were these 5 leaders? We just heard all their degrees and whatnot. Where were these 5 leaders of the recall when the association was calling for candidates to run for the board last year?
Right.
Yes.
Why is only one of the individuals on this recall a member of any committee at Lake of the Pines? Why aren't these 5 individuals volunteering their time to work within the system? Is it easier to throw rocks from the sidelines? One would think so. Each of us needs to consider our own self-interest as members of this association. But your board has a fiduciary duty to look out for the good of the association. Isn't the association just another word for the members? Yes and no. The association stretches into the future and includes members who don't live here yet. The board represents those members who are yet to arrive, as well as those who live here now. It is our duty to make sure our facilities are kept in great shape now and in the future. That's what we are trying to do. We ask the membership to let us do the job you elected us to do and vote against this recall.
Thank you, Jim. Now we will hear closing statements by the recall petition sponsors, 4 minutes.
Time's up.
Yes, it is true, as I mentioned even in my remarks, that Bill Hagan and myself were on the board. I also mentioned that in this group of 5, we have 30 plus years of committee experience and involvement. Bill Hagan was one of the founders of the Long Range Planning Committee. He was on the board for 3 years. Been on the Finance Committee. He was on the Public Works Building Committee, the Swimming Pool Committee. I could go on. All of you know that for the past 11 or 12 years I've run the triathlon and the lake swim. I was on the Lake Committee. Just because the last time we had a board meeting, we didn't step up again, you shouldn't be a matter here. As Tim was mentioning, what we have is very simple. This is a proxy vote on the clubhouse project. And truthfully, this 160 plus signees on the petition, this group of 5 sitting over here, we really don't care which way you vote. If you will take this recall as a proxy on the clubhouse project, we don't care which way you vote.
Well, then take away the petition.
Right. Because if you vote to recall, then you're saying that you don't want this $4 million or $3.1 million project. And if you vote to recall, then you're saying, you know, let's step back. Let's get the sports lounge loan played off first. Let's do a $2 million project or a renovation rather than a reconstruction. So it's your choice and it's your money. And what we would like for you to do is to stick around and see our PowerPoint presentation, because it will give you a lot more information about what this is all about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ralph. Now we would like to ask first Mr. Epstein to address the community, and I'll give you a little bit of background on Mr. Epstein. Brad Epstein has been specializing as an attorney in community association law for the last 17 years, since 1995. Mr. Epstein has spent his entire career in his specialization with the law firm of Angus & Terry, LLP. He became a partner with Angus & Terry 11 years ago. 99% of the legal work performed by Angus & Terry and its 18 attorneys is on behalf of community associations. Mr. Epstein provides services to hundreds of associations ranging in size from 4 residents to over 14,000. Mr. Epstein regularly participates in continuing education seminars and lectures on the subject of construction defect litigation and community association law. He's published articles in various community association trade organizations. He has been president, director, and member of the Community Associations Institute, California North Chapter. Please welcome Mr. Epstein.
Well, good evening. Thank you very much. So I've been doing this for 17 straight years. I've got to be nuts. Oh my gosh. Really, for 17 straight years, I've been into a ton of recall meetings. I've been to a ton of regular meetings, a ton of random meetings, a ton of hearings. And in particular for this, your board of directors did not direct me to prepare a statement. And on purpose, I didn't. I wanted to hear all the facts. Your board of directors has a fiduciary duty to all. And do you know what that means? It means they have to make their decisions.
Speak up, please.
Speak into the mic.
All right, I'll start over. I was born in 1961. What I'm saying is that your board of directors, they don't direct me what to say. They come to me and they say, Brad, are we doing it right? And this has been going on this way with your board of directors for the last 2 years since I've been advising your association. They owe a fiduciary duty to you, which means that they have to make their decisions in your best interest over their best interest. They can't make decisions unless they're in all of your best interest. And that's the same goes for me. As your attorney, your association's attorney, I am directed by your board of directors when I do the work, but my decisions have to be in favor of all of you, not these guys, and not this guy right here. So I have a fiduciary duty to you. So what's my task here tonight? My task here tonight, and actually it's been ongoing, and that is to make sure that your board of directors is in compliance with the law with respect to this decision, this important decision about the clubhouse. So that particular decision. And I can't make that decision until I have all the facts and all the law. And your board of directors and the petitioners here have made sure that I have all the facts and then of course I know all the law, or I look it up, which I have done. And so I wanted to wait till tonight to make sure I hear all the facts. So there's really two issues. The two issues are, and it's on the petition, right? The two issues are, number one, is a vote of the homeowners necessary for the board to go and renovate the clubhouse for $3.1 million? The answer is a homeowner vote is not required. Number two is, must the board consider the finance committee advice? And the answer to that is they cannot. They have to make their decision based on everything that they learn about this project. They no longer can rely on committees, and that's the law. The law says that a board of directors can rely on its attorneys, on its CPA, on its inquiry of all the facts, but it can no longer rely on committees. That's the law. Now, the board of directors can do a survey, and it can go out to the homeowners, and it can say, what do you guys think about this $3.1 million project? But in the same token, the board of directors, they cannot just, the law, we call it a punt. They can't just punt and say, whatever the homeowners want is what we're going to decide. It's their decision. It is this board's decision, and the reason why it's their decision and not all of your decisions, the law states, is because they have done more investigation, they have access to the attorney, so they are able to do a full analysis. You homeowners are never going to know as much as they do about their work. You can help them, you can provide them, hey, have you thought about this? The finance committee, have you thought about that? And they can take that into consideration, but they have to make the decision on their own. So that's my legal advice. Now also, I'm a counselor of law in addition, right? Counsel, not just attorney, so counsel. So I'm going to give you my counsel with respect to my opinion about this recall election. Recall elections are very destructive, and they're too expensive, and they don't make sense, especially when you have an election in April. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Brad. We're going to take a short recess while Channel 7 changes the tape. And Don will let us know when we can begin again. We're ready to resume the meeting, and I would like to bring David Levy to the podium, but first I'd like to tell you a little bit about Mr. Levy. David Levy is founder and managing partner since 1986 of Levi Erlanger & Company, CPA, a professional services firm specializing in California housing, that is homeowner associations and other nonprofit organizations. Mr. Levy's firm has clients including more than 1,000 common interest developments ranging in size from 3 to 5,600 units. Their firm services include preparation of long-term replacement reserve funding plans, pro forma operating budgets, assessment and reserve funding disclosure summaries, and other consultation services. Prior to 1986, Mr. Levy worked with several major Bay Area accounting firms. He is ex-president, speaker, and author with the Community Associations Institute, and a co-author of Reserve Study Guidelines for the California Department of Real Estate. Mr. Levy is our official accountant. Welcome him, please.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, all the previous speakers have robbed me of my thunder, so I've got a few other comments that I think are relevant. I'm by far the oldest member of your advisory council. Unlike Brad, I've been in the industry for approximately 35 years, which I calculated as I started in this industry about 10 years after your association was formed. So that's how old I am. Most of my career has been spent advising and working on homeowners associations since starting my own firm in 1986. Over the period of the last 35 years, we've worked on approximately 3,000 homeowners associations. That counts both current and former clients. And we've worked on quite a few large-scale associations similar to yours. So your problems are not unique from our perspective. I've also been involved in California in the legislative process in Sacramento as the community association industry has matured and have interacted with people who have differing points of view. I'm very impressed with the way this proceeding has gone this evening. To me, it seems very civil. The issues seem to be very clearly stated, including all of the math. Probably the most significant observation that I would have for the membership is that in most older associations, the problem is not planning for the future. Many associations in California do not have adequate reserve funds just for repairing the roof or the paint or things of that nature. I can't think of a single client at this point besides Lake of the Pines that has had the foresight to put aside money for the eventual replacement of buildings. Under California law, the reserve study process is meant to consider components whose remaining life is less than 30 years. So that would include the roof, the paint, everything but the structure of the building. This building obviously is more than 40 years old. And because the current board and former boards have had the foresight to assess additional funds for the replacement of those buildings, they're able to reconstruct the building without having to go for the dreaded special assessment. So I think that is a real plus in this particular matter. In terms of my involvement with the association, our firm has been involved as CPAs for the last 2 years. We assisted the board in performing the audit for 2009, 2010, shortly 2011. We also assisted the board in improving their disclosures with respect to reserves in the pro forma operating budget that you all received in the newspaper. And we continue to assist the board with the latest project, which is the implementation of new software for improving both operations within the development and also financial reporting. These efforts are not without hiccups, of course, along the way. No one is perfect, but by working together as a team, I think a lot of progress has been made, at least in the last 2 years that I've been involved. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, David. Closing statements by the Board of Directors named in the petition. 1 minute per board member. We'll start with Bud Abbott.
Thank you all for showing up. This is a wonderful crowd. I'm not the eloquent speaker that my other board members are, so I've just written something here from my heart. I was born and raised in Oakland, California, and I'm a retired Oakland firefighter with 26 years of service. I helplessly watched a beautiful city not invest in their buildings or infrastructure. I don't intend to watch Lake of the Pines make the same mistakes. This 40-year-old clubhouse sits on the best view of the lake and has been expanded, improved, butchered, fixed, and been the topic of future planning for more than 10 years. We hired architects, engineers, inspectors, studied this building to death. It's time to perform the major renovation that this community deserves. The current plan has been in the works for 16 months, with open meetings that were attended by very few members. Now suddenly, in the 11th hour, everybody thinks that we're doing the wrong thing and making a rash and irresponsible decision. I stand behind my convictions, and I will not let this handful of local people try to stop what I truly feel is the best for this community.
I'm George Schwartzman, and Diane and I, when we first came up to this part of the country, we took a look at Lake of the Pines, and we saw golf courses, tennis courts, parks, and lakes, and a great place to live. That's when we decided this is what we're going to do. And every time we come in this clubhouse, I look out the windows and say, are we lucky or what? Yes, we are. And yet, we have a lot of places to go. I was on the board 8 years ago with Ralph and Bill Hagan. Many of the things that we're talking about today were going on then. We've been making progress, slowly, but we're making progress, and I hope this particular one will get itself done and done quickly. We really need to move on.
5 seconds.
Give my 5 seconds to the next one.
I'm Richard Nolan. I want to thank everybody that supports us that are here tonight. And I can't begin to tell you how distressed I am with this whole recall situation. When you're elected to the board, you have a mandate by law to maintain and improve the board, improve the amenities. This board was working on trying to redo a 40-plus-year-old clubhouse that's riddled with code violations and has major seismic problems. Half a dozen people decided they weren't happy with what we were doing, so they started a recall petition. They got about 150 signatures, which is less than 7% of the membership. There's a small percentage of people for causing such turmoil and dissension within the community. Now, because of this recall, we're going to be forced to waste thousands of dollars to have a special election 3 months before the regular election of 2 new members. I don't understand the logic. We were trying to do our job, and now we face the recall. Who in the world would even consider running for the board?
Yeah, hi, I'm Don Carey, and where do I go from here? I moved here in 23 years ago, honey. Sorry. And we've got quite a few friends in the audience, and I think we all know that I'm a righteous type of a guy. Speak with my heart, speak with my truth. I want to say this for the board, and I've been on 2 sections of the board. Every board member catches a lot of heat from a lot of people. But every board member has always been a very active guy, very busy guy, very honest guy, and it's just the way it is. And so for all those people that want to chew on me after July. We've taken a lot of heat in the last couple of years, as you know, with all the sports lounge and all these types of things.
I'm sorry.
And we're just very pleased to have accomplished what we have done. And I think that you need to know that this board and these boards are just dynamite people. We should be appreciated. LOP will be here for the rest of our lives. So Kelvin.
Before I start my minute, I want to clarify it being misquoted, which I was misquoted on you.
That's not following meeting protocol.
Well, don't lie about me then, please.
I'm
Please, no
not.
comments from the audience.
I have completed 6 what?
Go ahead.
I have completed 6 months of a 3-year term of office as a director. At the request of the board, I volunteered to serve as treasurer of LOP. In these 2 roles, I have spent hundreds of hours assisting the association and educating the membership regarding the finances at LOP. I resolved when I was elected not to let member criticism become personal, but this recall has made it just that. I am insulted that these 5 people have questioned my honesty and integrity at every turn. I am angered that these 5 people and their followers, who have almost no involvement currently on any of our committees, can totally disrupt the functioning of this association cost us all money, and ignore the will of the majority who selected us to this office. I am sorely tempted to resign and allow these individuals to run the association. But I fear the damage they would do to the values of our homes, just as their actions to recall the board have placed this community under a cloud of suspicion that cannot help but turn prospective members away.
Ralph and the others may not care how you vote. I damn well do. I take being recalled very personal, and I know the colleagues sitting to my left feel the same way. You've heard two sides, two different versions of the same story. First, the petitioner's version, a failure to properly carry out our duties. We didn't call for a vote. Later in the evening, you've heard from the professionals, the people whose credentials you've heard and who advise us. I regularly, as well as the treasurer and the general manager, are in touch with these two gentlemen down here, and they have attested to that. We do not go all half-cocked. We check with counsel, we check with the CPA, and we use our best judgment, but never against the will and the direction of our attorney and our CPA. You can take that to the bank. All along, we've known that that's the way we were operating. Anything short of that, this board would not tolerate. Yet there have been those, some of them in the room today, who have gone out of their way to pass on to the community half-truths, innuendos, and accusations of improper actions. This board and management have been bombarded with lengthy emails of accusation. From one member alone, 148 emails in last year. Each of these, that's just one. There are others. Each of these emails, we need to critique, we need to understand, we need to look at, and in many cases, and Mr. Epstein can shake his head yes or no. You get involved in some of these if they're questioned. Mr. Epstein doesn't work for nothing. It takes management time, it takes board time, and it takes legal time, and it costs everybody in this room money when we get bombarded with wasted energy and innuendos, as I've said. I'm tired of it. The recall is placed, as Jim said, and I call it cloud of poison air over the entirety of LOP. It has caused anxiety among many of us. Me, the board especially, and concern throughout the community. Nobody can read and hear and see the comments that float around here and not have a little bit of concern. Is there any truth to that? Are those six scoundrels really doing their job, or are they fleecing us? Those have to cross your mind. You would not be awake if you didn't cross your mind. Those things are not true. What is happening before our very eyes feels much like a hostile takeover of our association by those who contribute to and support the member forum approach to things. If you doubt me, then I suggest you find your way onto the site and see for yourself just how much destruction the tone and demeanor of the most prominent writers' comments, endless diatribe. That's not healthy for the association. And believe me, prospective buyers that look at it, good, smart buyers look at everything. Capital reserve, like you heard Mr. Levy talk about. The budget, do we have a sound budget? Do we have money in the bank? Are we honorable? And is there political dissension in the community? A place I want to live. Who wants to live in a place with dissension? We need your support. Do not let this happen. Call or email your friends. Talk to your neighbors. And by all means, vote against this recall. What you have seen tonight, and by their own admission, is a ploy of this group trying to pressure the board. We're going to pressure you because we don't like what you did, to do something that you've heard our council say is not required. Should every time a group of 146 people say, I don't like it, we turn around and have a $10,000 election and don't do anything? That makes no sense. That's not how you run an association. That's not how you run a business. This recall is all about pressuring the board to give them something that is not required and that they are not entitled to. Let us not fall victim to that highly questionable ploy. Let us then give them what they are entitled to. An overwhelming, lopsided defeat at the ballot box. May the membership rise to the occasion and do just that. We need your vote. We need to send them a message. They want to send us a message, let's send them a message. Friends and fellow members, consider joining us together and let us rise to the occasion.